Hey, welcome on in. It's another edition of Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. And Claibs, we are out here at Mungenast Alton Toyota here on Homer Adams Parkway.
It's one of my favorite places. We always talk about the selection, but I think one of the things when you're buying a car these days is making sure you get good service and making sure that you get the right information. And for those who are looking to sell their car, they're buying used cars like hotcakes around here. So there are a lot of reasons why you want to come by. You can also go online and check them out as well and just get a real feel for what you're looking for. And I know you've heard all the stories about the supply chain and selection and things of that nature. This may be one of the few places where you can actually order a car and get something that you like compared to what was given to you. So come by and check them out, or better yet, go online so you have a real feel for what you want to look for when you come in.
Our audience can't see it, but I parked right in front of that. What do you think of that color 4Runner they got sitting out there?
That's a really nice color for you, not me.
You see, though, Jamie and I were talking. Jamie Burkhart, the owner here, one of the owners, general managers here. I asked him about it. It's a used 2022 4Runner. So it's a 2022 4Runner that you're paying used prices for because somebody drove it about 1,000 miles and brought it back.
That color didn't work.
And I said that's great
for St. Patrick's Day.
They call it lime rust, I think is what he said it, or rush or rust is what they described it to me as. And I said that's one that looks nice when you buy it. And I don't know. It's that there's a Toyota has a new color of blue that they've had out for 2 years now that I really like in the cars.
So my thing with that is you can never lose it on a parking lot.
No, you definitely can't.
You may not know what lane you parked in, but I guarantee you'll be able to find that car.
Yeah, and nobody's accidentally getting into that one either and thinking mistaking it from theirs.
It'll be the safest. It'll never be stolen because it'll be the easiest car to find.
Yeah, so there we go. Just one of the many used cars they have out here at the lot at Mungenast Alton Toyota. You can also go to the website too, altontoyota.com or stlouisacura.com, and see what they have on both of their lots and shop from home before you make an appointment and come out to either one of the locations and see which car is right for you. So we are out here today, Claibs. You are in town because the Cardinals are back in town. Yesterday they had you know what? You were there for the whole game yesterday?
I was. Watching
that game on TV. Very, very real playoff atmosphere. It felt like in the third week of April, which you don't get that much. And it is, yes, I think that's really overselling it and really kind of overdoing it when you're talking about a playoff atmosphere in April. But Max Scherzer was on the mound, so you knew everybody was going to be up for that. You knew the crowd was going to be into that. And then just kind of the devastation of the loss in that ninth inning, the way everything just kind of crumbled. It hurt, man. It hurt. That was a loss that you just had it ripped away from you, and you don't think it's going to matter at the end of the season, but you kind of look at that and you think that's one you really want back.
And you know what I would say to that, you get those back also.
Yeah.
Cardinals did that last week in Miami when Arenado hit the home run after O'Neill got walked. So those things happen. It also validates the whole 99.9%. You know, here's your 10th of a percentile that you saw last night, where just when you think you're flawless, you have one moment.
Yeah.
And it was a mental mistake. And I know Ali Marmol talked about it. Those are the things you can't have.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Gallegos today has to turn the page, but certainly remember it. And I guess for me, if this was 3 years ago, I would have said, well, what do you expect? The detail that this team puts into PFP practice, working every day at the ballpark in some way, shape, or form, tells me this was not a lack of commitment. This was just a brain cramp.
Yeah.
And I know Gallegos said he thought it was going to foul. Yeah. I thought it was going to be a double from where I stand going out on the field. I am directly lined up with the first baseline. And I thought it was a double. I say, well, it's a double. And then all of a sudden, here comes Goldschmidt out of nowhere making the play. And I think he was taken by surprise more than anything else. But the muscle memory of pitchers knowing when it goes toward that side of the field, you come off the mound no matter what. And we saw Scherzer do it last night on a couple of balls we hit to a second baseman. So mental mistake, he blew it. But he didn't cost him the game. You know, I mean,
No.
you had an era before that.
Yeah, Arenado's there. Did he talk after the Arenado talk yesterday? Because I didn't see anything or
but you know
hear
what?
anything from him, because his play, it just looked like something. Maybe he didn't get the ball out of the glove.
I don't
Maybe
think
he
he had
didn't
good
know
grip
where
on
he
it.
was on the field, because he ran forever before throwing that.
I don't think he had a good grip, and that happens a lot. He just makes up with it with his skill level, but you know, and that's unusual. Think
Yeah.
about it. I mean, how many errors for all the plays that you see him make?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that one got away from him. So I thought it was more grip. That's why the ball sailed on him. But you know, you saw two unique plays last night that I can promise you won't see for the rest of the season.
Right, and that's the thing. I'm going to touch on this later on this afternoon, doing Daily Cards Live with Bob Ramsey. Nolan Arenado is going to make errors this year. He's going to make a couple errors, not a lot, but he's going to make. He's not going to go perfect for the next 150
at least
games.
8 to 10 easy.
Yeah, and he makes up for those with about 20 or 30 plays that no other third baseman in the league can make.
True.
Gallegos is going to blow a save. It's not, it's not Eric Gagne out there going 70 for 70. Gallegos is not that guy. And he's also a contact closer, which isn't the best thing in baseball, but he gets outs.
Yeah, but contact closers have a better shelf life than a guy who's trying to blow everybody away.
Yeah, and with the Cardinals defense, having a contact closer isn't the worst thing. You know that the plays are going to be made behind him. The chances of Arenado making an error in the ninth inning and Gallegos blowing a save in the ninth inning happening again this year, very very unlikely for both of those.
Happen. I'm on record. It won't happen. Those two won't make that same mistake again.
Yeah. So it's just one of those. You know what? You would have liked to get it against one of the best teams in all of baseball. By the way, so first chance seeing the Mets. And here, I know they came down to Jupiter once or twice during spring training. So
but this was different because in spring training you see remnants of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
This was an A lineup that they put out there, and they're a pretty good team. They can swing the bat a little bit. I mean, they got some professional hitters in their order. So I think that they're going to have a say-so in the division. Atlanta is obviously going to have a say-so in the division. Miami doesn't have enough bullpen help to have a say-so, but they're going to make it an interesting run. Washington is a team that's rebuilding. And then you got Philadelphia, who offensively should be good. But, I don't know if Philadelphia can catch the ball enough to be considered a legitimate competitor.
Yeah. So you had also last night you had Corey Dickerson get the start as Lars Nootbaar gets sent down to AAA, bringing up Brendan Donovan made his major league debut as a pinch runner in the bottom of the eighth inning. Dickerson yesterday goes 0 for 4 again. So he's 148. You've already lost your other left-handed DH in Nootbaar by sending him back down. I'm assuming that at some point in this series, we're going to see Donovan get a start at either third or first with Arenado or Goldschmidt DHing.
Yeah, I think so.
But when you look at other potential left-handed DHs in the system, I mean, I'm going to keep bringing up the name Nolan Gorman, and
hold on.
I'm going to keep. You know what? I'm bringing it up for the fans. I'm bringing it up for the everyman out there.
I'm not telling you that he can't get here this year, but you're not pulling the plug on what you worked on in the spring just because of a bad week or two.
Mm-hmm.
I was just having this conversation. See, here's the X factor here is the fact that Paul DeJong isn't producing.
Right.
That's the reason why a Nolan Gorman would be called up, because you would slide Edmund over the short. Although he didn't play any short. He hadn't played a lot of short, at least since he's been in the big leagues. So you have some options there. But I'm going to let the Gorman thing breathe a little bit. I had talked to his manager yesterday down in Memphis, and he said he's really swinging the bat well. He's hitting breaking balls, and, he's swinging for power, and he's not trying to pull everything. And those are the things he's going to have to do in order to be effective. But why don't we wait until Flag Day before we start making roster wholesale adjustments, because you have to figure out what you're going to do with DeJong before you can move anybody anywhere else. Yeah, because the DH thing, Corey Dickerson's too much of a professional hitter for me to worry about. I think he'll come around, but it would be nice to have options in that situation. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's early season, and it's probably getting too worried about something that when you look at the rest of the NL Central, the Cardinals don't need to go out there and win 100 games. you don't need to put that much pressure on the guys. It's, just
good point you make. You don't have to win 100 games, but I think you should set the record, the goal for winning 100 games.
When you look at the way that the playoffs are going to be set up this year, and with the 7 teams and that 1 seed getting a little extra break, a lot of time with the way things are set up in baseball now, you get those extra days anyway. You can line up your rotation ahead of time. Do you want your guys sitting out that much extra? Because it is the Mets and the Dodgers are a few games up on the Cardinals, and it looks like the Dodgers might have the best team in all of baseball. So how much, I guess, pressure do you put on yourself to try to catch them?
You want to play. I think last year we kind of learned something, how we had the streak, and then we gave some guys some days off, and we really never clicked like we did. So I don't think you want to sit at home too long. You can go through your sim games and have your workouts, but you've been battling all year, and to have that long a period of time can be detrimental to you. I also feel like in this situation, you have to make sure that you rather have guys who are playing hard down the stretch, because I'm of the belief that you're already in playoff mode 2 weeks before the playoffs actually start, especially if you're trying to clinch a spot. So you've already got that mentality. So in this case, I just look at it where you want to have guys getting ample rest, which is amazing to me how much we talk about guys getting rest. And I thought they were in the best shape of their lives.
That's how they always come into spring training. They always come into spring training in the best shape of their life.
And they always talk about, we got to get him off his feet. We got to get his rest. When did that change?
You know what, though? But you don't see, you hear that a lot. But then you look at guys, the Cardinals bring in guys like Arenado and Goldschmidt who never want to take a day off. Yeah, they want to play 162. And I think with the DH now, I think that gives these guys an option to stay in there and stay in the lineup and stay in that competitive. Because you heard, how long have we heard about this from Yachty? You haven't heard Yachty complain about the days off he's getting this year.
Well,
but in years past, how many times did Yachty have a day off that he talked himself back into the lineup for?
I look at it, though, this is a different year. First of all, he's not in shape.
No, I'm just talking about just how often he did something like that, and how you have players like that on the team.
There's a lot of guys who do that. I think we all consider Yachty a tough guy, and he is. But there's a lot of guys who don't want to come out.
Yeah.
And the real manager adage should be this. Every great manager I've ever been around would always say, I want to give a guy a day off the day before he really needs one. So he gets 2 days off. And, we're in April, and I think there's a lot of adjustments that have to come into play. Weather conditions, day games versus night games, and just the fact you're seeing better competition. And throw in the fact that how many guys in spring training actually play a full 9 innings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So there are a lot of things that you have to gradually work yourself into in order to make sure that you get those guys for the full 162 game schedule.
You've seen about 20 games now, or 15 games, I guess, of Ali Marmol. How would you grade him so far 2 weeks into his first regular season as a manager?
It's been fine. He's a forethinker. He thinks ahead. He's a good communicator. And I think the fact that he has an advantage of knowing these guys, and he knows them in a different light being a former bench coach. And, bench coaches and managers have different communication lines with players. So having him be in that position where he knows how guys think and know what they like and what they don't like and how to be dealt with. And I'm sure he's conveyed a lot that to Skip as far as what his experience was. So I like what he's doing. I think he's been great with the media. He's direct, good answers. He doesn't beat around the bush. And I think last night was a great indicator of making guys accountable by saying, Gio, he messed up last night. We can't have that. But he also, I'm sure, talked to Gio before he went out there and said something. So I like what I've seen so far.
This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe. We are live from Mungenast Alton Toyota here on Homer Adams Parkway. Claibs, we as I keep looking at my phone today, it's because we got Joe West out doing a press tour today because next Monday you're launching a new podcast on the Podcast Heat Network.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. You're involved in it, Joe West, obviously, and it's your idea. You said something a few months ago about it, and now we've worked at it, and we've had some interesting guests that we've already interviewed, and we got a few more that continue to come to mind that we want to have on. And so I want to make sure people understand something. This is not a bitter man who wants to rip the game he's been involved in for 43 years. He's got a lot of good stories. He's got some interesting opinions about how the game is working and maybe the direction it could go. But the most you'll see, or the thing that you'll hear that'll be fairly common, is us laughing, having a good time. And we've had some good guests that have provided some of that entertainment. But the fact that Joe has so many stories that he's encountered over the course of his career, I think is the real fruit of this tree that we're going to have on every Monday.
He's done 2 interviews so far. I got him just having phone calls in all over the country, and so far 1 for 2 on questions about Angel Hernandez. Of the two interviews that he's had, one person has asked him about it so far.
Well, Joe's a professional, and it's going to come up. I mean, let's face it. Joe West and Angel Hernandez are the 2 most recognizable umpires in baseball for different reasons. Angel has been in the middle of a lot of controversy. Joe has just been around a long time and seen a lot done. And that doesn't mean that Joe hasn't rubbed some people the wrong way. But I think in Angel's case, who really isn't a bad umpire. Now, when he may kick a call or maybe do something, it seems like it draws attention to him, and that's what people get upset about. But the thing is, and Joe will tell you this, you won't meet a nicer person than Angel Hernandez. I've seen him do things off the field for people that you say, wait a minute, Angel Hernandez? Very gracious person. He's had his battles with Major League Baseball. He's got a lawsuit filed against him now, but I have no beef with him. I ran into him a couple of times in spring training. We stood out and talked for a little bit. And again, one of the nicest, most accommodating people in the business, not just as an umpire, but he does find a way to step on a landmine from time to time.
And so you can catch some of those. He was on with Randy and Michelle this morning. He'll be on with Frank Cusimano tomorrow. And just wait till you see where else we have him doing some hits later on. But it's 5460, the Joe West podcast. You can find it on Podcast Heat is the name of the network. But it's up right now. If you search 5460 on Spotify, on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, it is right there for you to find. It's already up and ready to follow that. So when the first episode comes out on Monday, you're there. It's sitting right there for you. This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe from Mungenast Alton Toyota here in Alton, Illinois, and we'll be back right after this.
Third baseman, Nolan Arenado. Back with a vengeance, back on the grinds, back to the business. Hey, God is my witness, they watching my moves, I shows they binging. Hey, best keep distance, all of my haters send best of wishes. I get to the bag with the quickness, no I don't need no assistance.
On Saturday, April 30th, 25,000 fans, 16 and older, will receive a Nolan Arenado bobblehead, thanks to Purina. For more information, head to cardinals.com/promotions.
Hey, I want to talk to you about Perfect K9. They are a group that trains dogs, and they've done a great job for me and my 2 dogs. And I want to remind you how good they can be for you, because they take any dog. There's some people who won't take on some of the terrier breeds, but they will take on any dog and train them to a manner where you will have more fun with them. You will appreciate them more, and it'll be one less worry you have. If you've ever had a pet, you understand how important they can be in your life. But at Perfect K9, these guys actually know. They put hands on. And for me, I dropped my dogs off a couple of weeks later, maybe a week later. It was like going to boot camp, but they were very good, mannerable dogs. If If you're looking for a dog for your kid and you want to make sure the house broken, this is where you start, because there's so many different rumors and ways you train dogs. These guys do it for a living. They do it for domesticated dogs. They do it for police dogs. They do it for everyone. So if you're thinking about doing something, check out their website. Give Jeremy a call. Let him know you heard us talking about him. And I can promise you, you will have much more fun and enjoyable times with your pet thanks to the good folks at Perfect Canine. I'm with the home loan experts, James and Jason Gillespie. They have some great programs that are going on right now as we speak.
Yes, there are so many opportunities for a client to save a lot of money.
All you have to do is give us a call.
Back here, lunch with Claibs and Joe from Mungenast Alton Toyota here on claibsonline.com. Claibs, we got NBA playoffs are well into the first round. I already had a few series wrap up. The Celtics swept the Nets, and so that means no more KD, no more Kyrie Irving,
That's good.
I mean, I want to say no more Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons I was gonna say we never saw him.
You know, I know everybody's clowning on Ben Simmons' ass here recently, and normally I would say, wow, but they're right. There's never been a bigger slacker in the game than Ben Simmons, and I always said when they drafted him, be careful for what you wish for, because he was playing in Australia. He'd always been catered to. He went to LSU, never went to a class, or at least not enough classes where he wasn't going to be eligible for the second half. And all he's been is a head case since the moment he walked into the NBA. For you to be traded in the manner that you were, and you weren't physically ready to go or being close after you sat out for so long, that's a joke. That's a problem. And then all of a sudden you have a bad back. I don't know. What were you doing to have a bad back? So I just thought it was a bad deal. It was bad for the Nets. And I got news for you. Philadelphia can't be excited about what they had with James Harden either. It might have been the worst deal that we've seen in pro sports in a long time. But New Jersey got everything they deserved. You had a guy in Kyrie Irving, who had other issues going on in his life that he felt were more important than his teammates. Kevin Durant tried to carry him as long as he could, but he just ran out of gas. They didn't supply him with a legitimate bench to help these guys, and they didn't play one guy who could have helped him. The kid from Oklahoma that was with the Clippers in Detroit, Blake Griffin. They didn't try and help him, give him as many minutes because he wasn't ready to go. So, you know, it's just a real disappointment on the lack of commitment that we're watching from some of these NBA teams or these players. And for you to sit at home and make $32 million and have the nerve to try and petition to get your money, it's just insane. So they got what they deserve. This Philadelphia-Toronto series has now all of a sudden become interesting for the reasons. First of all, Embiid's hurt. He's got a bad hand. And I don't know if you've ever played basketball, but shooting on your shooting hand when you got a thumb injury can be a little bit of a problem. Secondly, their bench is a little short. Thirdly, Toronto has enough athletes to make this an interesting series. The problem is they've got some guys hurt, and I don't know how much they can contribute. So those have been some interesting series for sure. Golden State is toying with Denver. That'll be over with. I think they play tonight. It'll be over tonight.
Games tonight. You got Hawks and Heat tonight, T-Wolves and Grizzlies, and then Pelicans and Suns tonight.
That Grizzlies scuffle will be fun too.
I'm shocked that both the Timberwolves and the Pelicans both tying it up at 2 games apiece has been for the Suns. You expected the Suns to dominate their way into the Western Conference Finals.
You lose Booker.
Yeah,
that's an MVP candidate.
So you have no Booker with the Suns. You have Curry, who's battling with some injuries for the Warriors.
He's coming off the bench, but you know what? They still have enough to beat them.
I'm just talking about in the future. You're talking about how long these injuries are going to linger.
No, I think he'll get better as the season progresses for him. The Memphis, Minnesota, you just had a Minnesota team with some guys with a little experience. They wanted to goon it up a little bit, and Memphis has been able to respond. But I still think it'll be a 6-game series. Well, it's got to be a 6-game series now. So I think Memphis is still good enough to close them out.
After seeing the Celtics just roll through the Nets the way that they did in that sweep, which is going to be the only sweep that we get in the entire first round. How much do you how great of odds do you give the Celtics
they
now for as far as being finals?
Well, they're going to be in the finals. They're going to be in the finals. I don't think there's anybody. Well, you know what? Miami is still good, man. Miami's still a good team. They could pose some matchup problems for Boston. So I'm not going to discount them. But I look at Boston really being the odds-on favorite. The West, I think, is Golden State to lose, especially if you can't get Devin Booker back in a reasonable period of time. But overall, I've enjoyed the games. I've enjoyed what I've watched. I think that we've seen some good spirited basketball. But it also shows the other side that I just mentioned about two teams in Philadelphia and New Jersey who have slackers and ring chasers, which this league has got to figure out what to do about.
LeBron decided that even though he wasn't in the playoffs this year, he was going to try to make headlines and coming out and saying that he'll never miss the postseason again.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of hard to miss it.
Right.
Okay. And I know what he's saying. I mean, he's got, 2
They didn't
years
even make
left.
a play-in game.
So it's one of those things that I just think we have to kind of look at the big picture here. And I think they'll figure some things out. Hey, let's take another break here.
Yeah, absolutely. We got more hoop stuff to talk about, and we have some NHL stuff to talk about right here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe right here on claibsonline.com.
The future of electric vehicles is beginning to grow across the Midwest, but there's a lot of work to be done before most people will feel comfortable switching from gas to EV. Ameren Illinois President and Chairman Richard Mart gives us some insight into how they're preparing by adding more electric vehicle charging stations.
Our vision is to basically have charging stations every 60 miles or so, from Cook County all the way to the tip of the state down to the Kentucky area, and then across the state, east and west, going toward Kansas and Iowa to the west, and going toward Indiana to the east. And so we feel that within the next few years, we'll probably add, we're hoping to add 60 to 70 a year over the next 5 years to really complete that infrastructure for the entire Midwest. In fact, the Midwest now has all the utilities in the Midwest are joining together to coordinate that. So, which is the first time it's ever happened that you've had Wisconsin say, okay, we're going to build our charging stations here, and Illinois say, okay, well, we can tap on here, and Missouri, this makes sense for us. So we can expand that north, south, east, and west by coordinating with the other utilities.
On Friday, April 29th, the Cardinals take on the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Arenado hits it down the left field line, hooking, gone! It's off the foul pole! An absolute rocket!
That day, 25,000 fans, ages 16 and older, will go home with an adult puffy vest featuring the Slugger Bird logo, presented by Bayer. The puffy vest is backed by popular demand on Friday, April 29th. For more information, head to cardinals.com/promotions.
For the weekend.
Hey, back here, it's Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com as we head near get towards the end of the show for today. Want to get to blue stuff, but we were talking a little NBA action, so want to stick with the college hoops for a second. Yuri Collins, last week on the show, we were talking about how he decided to enter the transfer portal. The rumors out there were $200,000 in NIL money to Tennessee to go to the SEC. And then yesterday, just out of nowhere, it's announced that Yuri Collins is going to stay in St. Louis for his final year.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it because, you've heard different stories about maybe there being some tough love, and maybe he didn't get what he was looking for from some other schools. But at the end of the day, the fact that he's still here, I think is a plus for St. Louis U. Now, I know maybe they want to acquiesce to some things that he like to do more of or less of. But when it's all said and done, they've got enough good players to be legitimate and to be competitive. And when you hear people say they could be a top 30 team, that tells you how far St. Louis U still has to go. Mm-hmm. And they have to have all the moon and stars aligned properly. The kid they're bringing in from the JUCO has got to be able to mesh. They got to stay away from injury, as we saw this previous season. But the bottom line is this: they have to get their shit together off the court. This NIL is here to stay, and they've got to do a better job in enticing players to come, let alone motivating players to stay. So they announced the day after he left that they had come up with this plan. But as I said last week, these boosters and people who want to be associated with the program, and it's not just St. Louis U, around the country, you talk the talk. Now's your chance to do something about it and generate a fund where you can make sure these athletes are compensated fairly for what they do. And spare me with this whole, well, they're getting a free education. No, they're not. It's not free. They spend probably more time devoted to their sport than they do the classroom. And, if it was free, they could go home on holidays. If it was free, they wouldn't have to stay after and do other things in order to make up for the missed work. So it's not free, but I think that administrations have to come to grips. It's here. Now, whether they tweak it or not, we don't know, but it's something you're going to have to learn to live with.
It's April. It's last week, mid-April is when SLU came out and announced their program for that. You've had teams all the way back in August and September when this first came out that were announcing stuff that had all of this in place. So waiting that long, kind of dragging their feet, it seemed like on something as big and as what this is becoming.
Well, I just have to think that schools like this, especially St. Louis U, turns out a lot of wonderful people in different professions. You can't tell me you couldn't find a marketing firm that could go out and search for deals and get things done, starting internally with your alums to get them involved. So this is just somebody who was just, for lack of a better term, maybe not asleep at the wheel, but probably was looking at their GPS instead of the road to figure out where they needed to be.
Claibs, we are just a few days away from the end of the NHL season. Blues with a big come from behind win the other day against the Ducks, winning 6-3. John Hamm was in the broadcast booth for the second period where they scored 4 of those 6 goals. Blues we already know they're already playing the Wild in the first round. We already know that that's all set and ready to go. How do you go about approaching these last few games, getting ready for that postseason?
You still have something to play for because you're trying to get home ice advantage in the first round. Minnesota has a game at hand. Blues have Colorado, who hasn't been playing well. They have them tonight. But I always remind people, Colorado doesn't have anything to play for. They're just trying to make sure they don't get anyone else hurt before they go to the playoffs.
And you have Vegas that has nothing to play for after that.
And there may be the ultimate explosion. They may blow that whole thing up in Vegas. They have spent a lot of money. They've had a lot of injuries. But I think a lot of people felt, at least the folks in Vegas felt, they were cup contenders. And for them now to watch the playoffs on TV, something's going to have to give out in Las Vegas.
Yeah, they. So you got the Wild. We'll talk about that a lot more next week, and we'll have more Blues coverage right here on Claibs Online going forward too. I believe May 2nd is when the NHL playoffs get going.
I'm anxious to see it because this is one sport where an 8th seed could be in the finals. Yeah. I mean, there's not a great.
It's not the NBA. It's not the NBA where we're sitting here talking about three teams. Yeah.
You're right. Good point. There's not a big gap. And I look at the West. I'll tell you the team that they better pay attention to is Calgary. They can score, pretty solid defensively. Goaltending has been about the same as everybody else's in the league, and they got a coach that's been there before. And his style works. Daryl Sutter's style works. So that's something that we all need to pay attention to.
Claibs, we're going to wrap it up here from Mungenast Alton Toyota, as we mentioned early on in the show. Joe West podcast that launches next Monday. 5460. Search for it. 5460 of the Joe West podcast. Search for that wherever you find your podcast. Audio only, not video like a lot of the stuff we do here on Claibs Online. So find that Spotify, iTunes, wherever you need to go to make sure that you follow that, you subscribe to it so you get the episodes when they launch next week. Next week, the first episode is just going to be you and Joe just talking, little stories from his career. And then after that, the guest list that we have lined up for this show, the guests that we have already recorded, the guests that we have confirmed is pretty phenomenal. It's far.
Nobody said no to him yet.
It is far beyond what I expected this to be. I thought we'd get a few guests. I thought it'd be like, yeah, cool. We're gonna get this guy. We're gonna get that guy. Maybe we get that guy.
Yeah.
And then Joe comes to me with his list, and he's like, hey, here's everybody that we can get. And my jaw dropped when I saw it. And then he just keeps calling me with other guests that he has and people that have said yes to him.
Yes and stories is what Joe has a lot of.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, and you're going to hear stories from these players, these celebrities, these front office folk that you have never heard before, and it's going to be something really special that we're putting together here. 5460 is the name of the podcast. Claibs, we're out here, Mungenast Alton Toyota. Next month, we will be at Mungenast St. Louis Acura. Both of those you can find online at altontoyota.com and stlouisacura.com. Check out the inventory that they have at both locations by going online and finding it there.
Are we giving tickets away today?
I'm going to give them away social media. I'm going to give them away on social media later today. Tickets for tonight's game for the Cardinals
Jordan Hicks
and
going,
the
right?
Mets. Yeah, see how far you think they stretch them out past 60 pitches tonight?
I think so. Well, it depends on, it's going to be a little nippy tonight, so you never know. It's about feel with him and how he progresses, but I wouldn't be shocked.
So that game, we'll check my social media, check the Claibs Online social media. We're going to give those tickets away later on this afternoon. This has been another episode of Lunch with Claibs and Joe. Hey, powered each and every week by Ameren Illinois, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, and also sponsored by the Home Loan Experts. For Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. We'll talk to you next week.
I'm with the Home Loan Experts, James and Jason Gillespie, their father and son combination. James, you guys not only do great work with mortgages, you also do great work in the community.
That is correct, Mike. We have several programs for the community where we're out helping the community as well. Isn't that right, Jason?
You're right, Dad. We are doing a ton of work in the community, but we're also doing a ton of work helping home buyers refi and buy homes. All you have to do is give us a call.